Okay, everybody, we're going to have a panel that I've really been looking forward to for quite a while because it's structural. It's actually architectural for the entire country. And that's the use of the regional optical networks, the R&E networks, and Internet2 to continue to expand on Frank's vision that he so eloquently laid out this morning, to reach much broader across the country into the 4,000 institutions. The California, as Frank said, of course, started down the road, actually going back to the Optoputer, in 2002. And so by now, this is a map you've seen a lot of, and Tony gave a very nice talk this morning about CENIC and how they've decided to call the presence of the NRP Nautilus nodes in California, all interconnected by CENIC, as the CENIC AI resource. And that has really galvanized a lot of the engineering staff, and it certainly it has galvanized a lot of the communities, because as we heard this morning, the CENIC network, I've been on the board of directors for 24 years, I guess, connects all of the 10 UCs, the 3 privates, Caltech, USC, and Stanford, the 23 CSUs, the Cal State universities, the 116 community colleges that are divided into 73 districts, and you'll hear from the 2 largest of those districts, LA and San Diego, later today, and then 9,000 K through 12 and 200 libraries. There's nothing like CENIC in the world. And in particular, I say that having lived through several decades of its evolution, because of the social integration that has happened between all of these levels of research and education institution across the state. Tom DeFonte has been, along with John Graham and a number of the others, have driven to a number of these places. You think Tony showed you that picture, to install the Nautilus nodes. And this is just giving you the details of the number of CPUs, GPUs, the terabytes on each one of them. But as we were doing this, we, of course, have worked very closely with the Quilt. We're up to, I think, 816 GPUs now. And Jen Leasure, as you know, was to be on this panel, and there have been some disturbances in the national force in the last 48 hours that she felt was important to help the NSF grantees on while they were otherwise freaking out. And so she's not going to be able to be with us, but she sent me the slides, and I will try to channel Jen, because her role in the Quilt, the organization of all the regional optical networks, has always been essential for building out the national research platform. And here you see all of the networks, which is, it's really extraordinary, because you go back to 85 when I started NCSA, Sid started SDSC. A lot of people don't realize that also NSFNet started funding regional networks. And this is it's like 85, that was 40 years ago. This is the 40-year later fossilization of those regional networks, who of course exponentially have increased their speed and connection. And it's really magnificent if you think about all of the campuses in this country that are interconnected by those regional optical networks, and all those regional optical networks are a part of the Quilt, and Jen is the president and CEO. So it's been a real honor to work with her. I have found that the regional R&E networks, of course, provide the advanced networking you'd expect, but they also help aggregate across the membership to go in for like CC Star grants and things like that. They're the regional technical consultants. And of course, they all are interconnected, as James will show you from Internet2, by Internet2. And Internet2, of course, has also been a great partner. They convene. This is so important. I have, been to a Great Plains Network meeting, and I've given a Zoom talk to SOCs and so forth. They convene from the member campuses. And that's so important. That's what CENIC does. Of course, it's on a vast scale. But we have a retreat, every summer or in the spring. And all the common problems that these are having, like the amazing problems that Frank talked about with security, that, of course, isn't just one institution. So the ability regionally all across the country for them to work together is essential. And by working with the Quilt, we, of course, then, it's like a force multiplier, because when the Quilt decides something's important, all of the RONs pay attention, and then that has been instrumental in the building out of the NRP. So I just want to quickly, because we are fortunate to have representatives of both two of the great regional optical networks, the Great Plains Network and SOCs, with us here on the stage. I'm going to let each of them talk for a few minutes about their networks and their engagement with NRP, and then I'm going to hand it over to James to talk about the full national picture from Internet2. So, Mickey, you want to take it off?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Great Plains Network has been around for a while. James, on the panel with me, was my predecessor as the executive director of the Great Plains, and worked to build quite an organization. There were multiple executive directors, CEOs prior to James. So it's a good heritage. All that we're doing with NRP and with HPC performance computing has been built on a huge cadre of experience around the Midwest. Great Plains is a network of networks, much in the way that Internet2 is, but on a smaller scale. We include 6 research and education networks on a state level: Kansas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, South Dakota, Nebraska, and I think I always leave one out. I can't remember. There's 6 there. And then we have multiple affiliate members coming from Minnesota, Iowa, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin are working with us in other states. So we've deployed our NRP resources mainly to the 6 state members, but we do touch into the other locations too. Our program in research computing has been managed directly by Derek Weissel and Alex Hurt. So you both have heard them multiple times during the conference today. I really count myself as knowing very little in the area and relying on Derek and Alex to move the thing forward, and they've been very good with that. I've been with Great Plains myself only for a year and a half, and so came from Texas Learn, was working with them as a regional network manager, and from the UT system as an associate provost there for a number of years. So came with that background, do have a research background a bit, and so that gives me a little bit of a unique feature, and I think that was one of the reasons that Great Plains looked at me in coming on board, because they wanted to increase their connectivity to researchers and have that tie in more. So we've been doing several things to do that with that. Great Plains already has a good network. Some of our project managers are researchers on their own right. We've moved towards our annual retreat or workshop that we do. We've been focusing on an area of research within those workshops. So last year we focused on precision agriculture, and we brought in a number of our researchers who were working in the HPC arena and doing supercomputing projects in precision ag, toured some places with a lot of IoT applications, collecting data and such in fields and things like that, and utilize that in our meetings, build it around that. Our networks, our IT focus was still the key aspect of our conference, but we made a point of having researchers there and working with that. This year, we're moving our annual meeting to the Ames National Laboratory and Iowa State University. So we hope to do the same thing. We hope to bring in their physics researchers, their DOE researchers, their materials researchers, and looking at that aspect of supercomputing, what we're doing with that data, and working with that. Last year, we were able to do a carpentries workshop. A lot of you have been hearing carpentries mentioned several times. We did that, and it was directed by a USDA officer for us. And so getting that mix again, bringing someone in from the funding agency to do that workshop for us, bringing in researchers from the University of Nebraska. We were at Lincoln, came in and worked with us on that. All of that was very useful, and I think moved our project forward. In the future, we've done, so far we've had 3 major research platform proposals. First one was called Cyber Team, and that put out some of our initial technology. We followed that up with another project, GP Argo, and if you go to our website, you can find out what the acronyms actually stand for. They're about that long. And the latest one that Alex and Derek work on is GP Engine. And so those have been what we've done in the past. We're working on some new projects now, looking at storage. Most of these are being done at the state level, so we're calling it GP Store or storage internally, and looking at what we can do in that stead. We're looking at what we can do next, and I think the AIR, artificial intelligence, is going to be a direction. I think it was said this morning that GPN was doing this before there was, or when CENIC AIR was coming together with theirs, and we actually have been. I think a matter of formalizing that into this kind of processing, tying with IAI will be good. Our last few meetings, we've done partnerships and workshops with NVIDIA and other groups to push the AI training down to our faculty level. And so that's been really worthwhile. I think I've probably used up my 3 to 5 minutes, so I'll let it go forward.
That's great. Eric?
Let's see. Hi there. I'm Eric Buckhalt. I'm here from Georgia Tech and the SOX Regional Network. SOX is in the southeast. It's mostly encompassed of connections from schools in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee right now. Let's see. So SOX has been involved in the PRP years ago, and I remember when we got a recipe from one of the folks here for a Fiona node at the time. Since then, we've converted them to be NRP members, so we do have a data transfer node that we host centrally for our connected members. And we've gotten some CC Star grants specifically for minority serving institutions, and as we bring those on board, we're deploying Nautilus nodes at each of the schools to help empower them to where they can have, we use it for telemetry and metrics from Sonar, as well as for the researchers. SOX is currently also running a Jupyter Hub instance that we make available to our members in case they want to, get on board with the NRP and get started. It seems to be the quickest way to get somebody working with it. Let's see. I think I have is there a slide that lists all the connected
I think
entities?
you got it all. And then here at a slightly smaller scale than GPN, but it's like popcorn. It starts, it just keeps popping. And so these maps will get updated and more. Tom DeFani has conversations with a lot of these places that are very interested in bringing their own resource, as Frank says, and then hooking it in to the overall NRP. Even though we've just focused on 2, Jen sent all of the research and education networks that are connected one way or the other to the NRP. And notice that a number of these, for instance, are within things like the GPN. So this is actually, kind of linear list instead of a hierarchical list. But I think you're going to see this continue to grow. Notice that a number of these things, like the Florida Lambda Rail, is affiliated with SOX, and we heard about how there were affiliate members. So that's how it all sort of works across the country. So Jen, in particular, said that she wants to focus in this next year on the meetings, and of course Quilt has these meetings often. They've had them with NRP or shortly thereafter on taking the CENIC AIR and now GPN AIR and SOX AIR as a model for an AI resource for any research and education network in the country. That's going to be extremely exciting. And because the Quilt has all the people there, the people from California, the people from CENIC, the people from GPN, the people of SOX, because they're further along the path, they become the mentors to the other groups that want to get going but are just starting, and they can help them a lot. So it's very important, this collective knowledge that grows over time. That's really what lets this all happen. So I'm going to turn this over now to James. In fact, he's going to give us a update on when Quilt is going to start on this.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Good deal. So yes, it's unfortunate Jen couldn't be here. And part of the reason is because she's wanting to make certain that an event next week it goes off without a hitch. And so that's why she's not with us today. And I'm excited to say there is a CENIC AIR topic brought up. I think Frank and some other folks are going to be there, and there's going to be quite a bit of discussion. This is the Quilt member meeting, but it's also in conjunction with the NSF CC Star PI workshop. And so it's a phenomenal event. And I guess whenever I talk to a group, I like to interact, and I can actually see you now that my eyes have adjusted a little bit. So raise your hand if you're going to the CC Star PI workshop. Raise them both. Be proud of it. All right. There we go. So if you see people near you, ask them about it. Find out why you're not a PI on a grant yet, because it's a great set of funds that have been the source of much of what's happened at GPN and at SOX. In fact, at one of these workshops a couple of years ago, Eric and I were geeking out and discovered that these beefy DTNs that were being purchased for these for the HBCUs through regional CC Star grants would be perfect new NRP nodes, because they would knock off the goal of serving for data file transfer, but also for measuring the performance of the network, and allow the people at the RIN to scale and be able to address the needs. Let me ask another question. How many of you are with a RIN in this room? Raise a hand. I know there's some of you. All right. Perfect. Okay. Now raise your hand if you don't have somebody that you can talk to at your RIN. Everybody's not raising their hand. So you know somebody at your RIN that you can talk to and work with? Perfect. This is great. I love seeing that, because one of the things that RINs are really trying to do is help engage more directly with the researchers at their institutions, and sometimes that's a hard gap to get past. Luckily, I think you're going to hear from others later today and tomorrow that might have ideas on how to do that. But I wanted to just quickly go through a couple of slides here. This is the Internet2 backbone, and if Larry wants to pop to the next slide, I just wanted to show that Quilt and Internet2 work a great deal together, obviously, because Internet2 works with every single one of the regionals. I think 46 different connectors and network members. Majority of them are Quilt members, but there are some that just are part of Internet2. But by coming together in this fashion, we're all super focused on the benefits of, obviously, networking for research. If you go to the next slide, I wanted to share this, because if you have a RIN that's not engaged in setting up something, following the AIR blueprint, per se, these are a couple of reasons that I've found incredibly valuable. So the first one is RINs typically don't have a lot of extra staff or dedicated staff to research. But because of NRP and the models that are in place for scaling up, if you provide the remote hands and the power and the location, it's an easy way to grow the infrastructure. And so it's something that SOX saw firsthand. I know GPN is very lightweight, and then working with the state networks, it's a way that they can contribute to a resource and actually see metal and see space that they're already paying for be used for a broader mission. The next one I personally am very, very fond of, because when we talk about democratization of access, I, in a prior role, was able to work with a very small regional university where there's a passionate, incredible CS faculty that was wanting to engage with the students. And so with the REN I was at, I was able to deploy on NRP a Jupyter environment that was on their domain. The last thing a student does at their proud small institution in rural Oklahoma wants to do is to go to UCSD. I'm sorry, Frank. But they want to be able to go with their Bulldogs at SWASU, right? And so they now have a Jupyter environment that they use to teach fundamental concepts in CS, and it's on their domain name. And so I think that's empowering, and it's something that the RENs get excited about because they see the impact of these resources to the smaller institution. Sorry, you went back. Could I?
One more.
Sorry. Go back one more. I just wanted to cover that.
Yeah, sorry.
The other thing, I already covered the CC star piece, but this last bullet is, I think, very important because everything that happens with data movement, whether it's the national data platform, the activities between these nodes, we have got to have more vantage points in the network to be able to assure good throughput. When we were talking earlier, somebody has, they were only getting 1 gigabit of data movement through what they think is a high performant storage. There are people in this REN space that want to help solve those issues. And so the next page, please. So Internet2, for instance, has historically run a system called Performance Assurance Services. And basically, they're just running Sonar. I see Ryan in there, Ryan with the Applied Data Systems. I think these boxes came from him. They've been in the network, but they're basically running Sonar. But if you look over here, there's 6 terabytes of RAM and 1,000 cores. It's not, that's a little bit of space that could be used greatly for classroom environments. It runs a lot of Jupyter notebooks. And so I'm very excited that we have started the process. The first few nodes have already come over. If you've seen any of the other maps of Nautilus, we already have about a dozen nodes that we contribute for OSDF. But this is exciting because from a REN environment, all of a sudden, the NRP provides vantage points at the edges of campuses who may have just gotten new connectivity or need justification for new connectivity. And so one of the things that we're doing because of this is very lightly being able to improve the network research data collection, and more importantly, provide the ability to help proactively solve network issues so that Nautilus access, CENIC AIR access, GPN AIR access is super stable. And then when it comes to scaling into the commercial cloud, we have vantage points for environment. And it's just a nominal bit of use, but it's empowering to the REN, empowering to the institution. So I just wanted to highlight that the RENs get something out of this as well.
Thanks so much. I think we've got 5 minutes left for questions, and I'm sure there's a lot of them. So I'm going to join the panel. The microphones are out there either down here or running around. So go to a microphone and ask these folks some questions you can take home and do something with.
Lauren, let's go to the.
So we heard. Testing. Okay. So we heard Frank talk about the bring your own hardware model, and that some of the institutions that folks like yourselves have worked with have been able to take advantage of that model, and therefore have faculty and students engaging with NRP services more readily. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it means to bring your own hardware for the institution. What's the minimal amount of initial investment, ongoing support, and how are institutions managing that? What types of professionals on their campus are responsible for that versus, what parts of the infrastructure does NRP provide or can NRP provide at no charge?
Great question.
I'm happy to jump in a little bit, or Larry, I don't want to. I would just say from my personal experience, because as you heard from Mickey, I was with Great Plains Network about 2 years ago. The amount of resources I've seen deployed and be used successfully have gone for anywhere from just a machine that was bought for Sonar that's only got like 30 gigs of RAM and a couple of cores to everything from donated old clusters from industry. And so I'm very excited to know that there's still nodes in NRP that came because Cisco decided that they said these demo boxes aren't our latest and greatest, but they had several hundred cores, half a petabyte of storage, and it was made it easy for an institution to just take that, put it in the dark corner of their data center. And the nice thing about the Nautilus management structure is and they've refined it a great deal. I mean, it's incredible. You basically you follow a set of instructions to set the IPMI or the management of the box to a small set of folks in Nebraska and here on campus, and they do the rest. It's like you get it. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it. I know Christopher or somebody from CENIC AIR is probably going to go, "Oh no," but I mean, there are steps that you go through, and thankfully, the CENIC AIR has released an amazing FAQ. I think Tom DeFonte and others contributed to it, and so they touch upon some of those details. So you can have basically a box of any size. And there's something empowering too, to have that box on the edge of your campus and know that that's going to be prioritized for anything you deploy. Back to that SWASU, that campus, Southwestern Oklahoma State University. They had a box that was donated by an industry partner it was huge and awesome, but they didn't have anybody local to manage it. And so they got it online, and that Jupyter environment prioritizes it running from their campus. But the moment they scale beyond, because I've got 50 people in the class versus it's seamless. They don't know that it's scaled somewhere else into the network. Anyway, sorry, I'm taking.
And I also want to point out, Lauren, that we are talking pretty much about universities, but what we're going to hear later this afternoon is from the community colleges, and you're going to hear from the San Diego Community College district, where there are 72 more districts in California that they've installed. With Tom and the NRP staff, Nautilus nodes there. And so I think you're going to see, in addition to moving out across the other campuses that are associated with the R&E networks to the four-year colleges and the community colleges. And I think that's going to be really essential to realize Frank's larger vision.
Hi, I'm Faru Garamani with New Jersey Edge, and I have a comment and some thank yous. We actually had a Fiona node several years ago, and I was working on a regional connectivity proposal, a CC Star, and James Deaton called me one day just to talk about something else, and I mentioned that the DTN, we don't have the expertise to be able to support the regional DTN, and he suggested to work with NRP. And so big thanks to Frank and Derek, who helped us in the proposal process and also are going to be helping us in the implementation. Our proposal has, our project has 7 institutions, a few small liberal arts colleges, and a community college. Sorry. Yes, it's an award.
To the extent that the federal funding structure continues to work, a lot of the regional optical networks have gone in for regional proposals and have been successful. And in fact, we're seeing more and more regional wins. So I really hope you'll look at that. And there's a whole set of folks just like NG Edge that are now in the winner's circle that are happy to share with you how they wrote their proposal and what they asked for and that sort of thing. So, you know, that's again, force multiplication across the country. I think we're just about out of time.
Thank you.